Hello, everyone. You're listening to The Right Side of Gaming. Today, we're talking about side hustles. I'll admit I'm not really a fan of the term, but it's something I've heard multiple times a day. Though that might be because I listen to talk radio in my office at work, and whenever one show picks up on something, there's a good chance the others are going to cover it too. But that was a big topic today, apparently. A lot of people are doing a little work on the side, which isn't too hard. We have more jobs than people at the moment. We haven't even been able to refill all the jobs we lost during lockdown, I don't think. And people got so used to being home or getting paid without working that it caused some issues. I know locally they've had problems getting and keeping enough people in manufacturing, trucking, and restaurants, or at least that's what I hear a lot about. And I think that's pretty common in a lot of areas. And those first two are definitely keeping prices up. Being able to have enough people to manufacture things and get it out on time, and then being able to transport it where it needs to go. That's definitely important in our economy these days. Now, these are good jobs, and they're needed jobs, but it's not what a lot of people would consider really glamorous. Of course, you'll notice that I mentioned side hustles and not side jobs. A lot of people are trying to make money in less traditional ways too. And of course, since there's a big gaming focus on this channel, you know that I'm about to make this whole topic gaming related. So it shouldn't be a surprise for me to say that a lot of people are trying to monetize their hobbies. Everything from making dice, maps, RPG supplements, to painting models for people, to streaming on Twitch or running paid games, all sorts of things. And I'm sure there's tons of other stuff I'm forgetting or just not thinking of at the moment. Now, to be clear, I don't fault these people. I know I would love to get paid to do things that I enjoy. I don't plan on it. I don't expect it to ever happen. I think someone paid me for an RPG game once. It was a Pokemon tabletop game. And I told them they didn't have to do it. But outside an unusually thankful player, I don't expect anything I do to ever turn a profit. And for most people, it really doesn't. I also don't want people to think that I'm just going to be negative about this either. There's a lot more products to choose from with so many people trying to break into the market. There's a lot more variety. For example, I know that books that maybe bigger companies couldn't get away with publishing or would look bad on them if they did, well, smaller publishers can put those out. Or maybe things that are really cute or creative. That's a good way to break in. I know there was a dice set that really stood out to me not too long ago. Someone had made these clear dice, but there were these tiny little rubber ducks inside of them. And then they put all the dice in this bathtub-shaped dice holder, and it was super cute. I mean, it was absolutely adorable. I actually need to go back at some point and see if I bookmarked that, because if I was ever going to buy random dice from a random person on the internet, it'd probably be the little rubber duckies. But some people have made it their goal to make money with their hobbies, and there's definitely some challenges that go with it. First is probably the market. I think it's kind of an understatement to say that it's a bit oversaturated at the moment. There's a lot of competition, not just with other small content creators. There's a lot of times a lot of people trying to put out the same or very similar things. But also with the big major companies. If you're putting out a product, it's really hard to get people to go with, this smaller indie developer or maker or whatever than this major company that has a good reputation that people know. With so much in the market, it's really hard for some people to stand out. And along with that, I think there's the issue of quality. It's hard to get a good gauge on the quality of what people are putting out. Sometimes you'll see samples or see what people will post for free, and there's a huge spectrum of material, but a lot of times it's not stuff that it's easy to get your hands on or try out before buying. Sometimes you get something usable. A lot of times you get something that might be a little lacking or imperfectly made or whatever. And it definitely comes into play when they're making things like supplementary materials, like RPG books and things like that. Your monsters, your magic items, your races, all that stuff. Something could be really bad or so overpowered that there's no way most DMs would ever allow it in their game. Like, there's stuff I've seen, I'm like, no, we would have to tone that down before I ever let anyone think about using that. And it applies to the service portion too. I see a lot of people offering to paint minis or run games for people, and there's definitely a spectrum on ability. Like, I don't necessarily want to spend as much time painting my minis as I have to, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I want someone else to paint them. Sometimes they do a really good job. Sometimes it's like, well, okay, I mean, it's good, but it's not what I envisioned. And then sometimes it's somehow even worse than I am. Or maybe you have your gaming groups, your people trying to DM and get paid to do it. You know, you might be really good, you might be kind of not. Maybe you are, and it just wasn't a good fit. Not every person is going to fit every group. Different players and DMs have different styles, and that complicates things. It also doesn't help that a lot of the writers and paid DMs I've come across online have a little bit of an attitude, if I'm being honest. I think a lot of people in tabletop in general have some self-esteem issues. It seems like most either think too little of themselves or way too much, and some of these people definitely fall on the latter side. You know, I see a lot of comments of them saying things like, people have a right to make a living. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, okay, you have a right to search for and find work. You have a right to labor. You don't necessarily have a right to make a living doing whatever you want. You know, just because you want something to be your primary source of income doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be successful. Just because you want to charge a lot of money for something doesn't mean that it's worth that much money, or that other people should or even will pay that much for it. There are costs that can go into things, but you still have to put out a good enough product or service to justify having other people pay to cover those expenses. And a lot of them, I've noticed, kind of look down on anyone that isn't a paid DM or a published writer. You know, I've known some people that were great storytellers or monster designers, and they never got paid a penny for their work. And I've also come across people that I wouldn't pay that same penny to for a lot of the stuff that they're trying to put out. I think a lot of it is kind of a big fish, small pond mentality. It's really easy to think that, you know, you're really great and that you deserve something or that you're owed something until you really step out and see what else is out there, what other people are making, and just how talented some of the other people out there are. And if you give them a fair comparison, if you really stop and look, it's like, okay, you know, I may think that my stuff is good, but this person out here is doing an amazing job. They're doing better than I am, and it shows in their work. You know, then maybe you realize, okay, maybe you still have a lot to learn. Now, at the end of the day, I understand wanting to monetize something you love, something that you were probably going to do anyway. But I don't think it's as simple as people try to make it, and I think it's going to get harder and harder as more people try to fit into the same space. Because it seems like more and more people are trying to make and publish their own things, or trying to start selling their own dice, or whatever. I mean, people are picking up on these side hustles. That's all I had for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to leave a like, comment, subscribe, that'd be great. Feel free to let me know if there's a creator of anything tabletop related that you really like, especially if there's someone that you feel good about supporting. I know it's a little bit harder on this side of the hobby aisle, as most people and companies these days lean sort of the other way politically, in the online hobby space, and pretty heavily at that. So more center or right-leaning creators can have some difficulty, just keeping their content in stores or getting in there to begin with due to some of the political bias. I've seen stuff get taken down because, well, they just didn't agree with it. And I have no doubt that that applies to the tabletop space as well. I'll admit I'm kind of a small channel. I don't really have much reach, but if there's someone you guys would recommend, I would be happy to do my best to feature them on here. I know I've talked about some community resources and other content creators before for some of the games I've played. So, it's not much, but I'm willing to do what I can for them. And if you don't want to do any of that, if you don't want to like, comment, subscribe, or give me any recommendations, I understand. That's okay. Either way, I hope you have an awesome day, and I will catch you next time.